Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome to Shrigleytube TV, episode 32. Thanks for everybody that's been watching and subscribing. That's great. We've got some good hits on last week's video, so that was pleasing to see. This week we've got a good varied spread of bits and pieces with Dino. Nicolas, his engine, from the chap from Germany. He came over, so he introduces himself and we get him operating a dyno and stuff. That was fun. We have a visit from Ed as well. So Ed came to see us with the rally car. He's done a rally in South Wales and he had a bit of a misfire, and we think we understood what had gone wrong at the end. He had a bit of a problem with his trip computer, but we think it might have got some interference from a bad lead on the engine, but you have to watch the video to understand it. Anyway, right, also I pulled this engine apart, which is a 1040cc race engine. It was due for refresh. It's come in, he's had some nice upgrades, steel crank, etc. So I've done a bit of a video on that, so we've not quite got to the stage of dyno in it, as you can see, which is where I want it to be, but I will do that before I go to Stoneleigh on Thursday. So that'll be in next week's video, the dyno in of that engine. Obviously we're at the stand next weekend, which will be the Friday the 23rd, 4th and 5th of February. So we're at Stoneleigh. If you fancy coming along, say hello. We'd love to see you there, and if you want to buy a t-shirt, you're welcome to. So I'll stop waffling now and get on with the video. Take care, hope you have a great week, see you next Sunday. Okay, good morning, YouTubers. Now this is the engine I've just received back for refresh, so it's done its time. It was a brand new engine a couple of years ago. The first time I think the lad used it was at the Imp Club National Weekend, where they had a test at Goodwood for the afternoon. So he's done a fair bit, a good season and a half of racing. He's been out in the CTCRC with it. It's on a pair of 45mm Delautos, and it's what was the sort of, I've tried to stagnate the spec. It's a 1040 with the BJ cam in it and the steel rods, etc., and the Hepalite pistons. I don't move the engines on much. I try and make them all one type, and then it's fair for everybody, whether they've got one that's like 3 or 4 years old or brand new. So this is all the latest spec, and it still will be the latest spec. The only thing that's going to change on the refresh is the chap that owns it has requested that we had a steel crankshaft made for it, so it's like effectively it will be all brand new parts, or all the parts will be a couple of years old. You know, the rods will obviously go again. It is on a standard crankshaft at the moment, you know, an imp crank that's just been balanced, etc. So I'm looking forward to getting it apart and seeing how it's fared up. He did do quite well with it, and I'm keen to see how things have fared up. So what I thought I'd do is do a little video. We'll pull it apart together. I won't pull it apart on camera. I'll just stop when I find something interesting and make a little video about it, and we'll go from there. Okay, I've just removed the carburetors and the manifold. Obviously it's this lovely equal length manifold from our friend Will Parry. So carbs all look good, gasket's been seating okay, no blows or leaks there, so that means the manifold flange is nice and straight. The clutch looks like it's had a bit of a hard time. The fair bit of dust in there and a fair bit of heat as well, but that's no problem. It's better that he slips the clutch and saves the gearbox, if you know what I mean. These are cheap to replace compared to a gearbox. So I've just had a quick look over here. This, by the way, is the TTV 2020 Vision clutch and flywheel setup that I buy a few of for the imps. They're great. You just bolt the whole lot straight on. Real good weight saving. This is made out of some sort of chrome ollie. The ring gear isn't individual, and you can see after a year it's not even touched the ring gear. It's like new, so that's great. So looking over here, I've just set this up with a torch to show you. This is the clutch, and can you see the daylight on this side here? That's because the plate has basically mushroomed like that. It's just how it goes. Whether we replace it or not, I don't know. I'll have a chat with the customer. Now looking up here, let's have a look up here. How's this looking? So we can see the inlet ports all look good, and the exhaust ports all look dry, so that's nice to see. And the block's very clean. I don't know if I might clean this before he's delivered it, but yeah, the engine doesn't look in bad condition at all at this stage anyway. And obviously the water sticker that I put on the engine has been up to roughly, I'd say, about 90 degrees, so we're not going to sweat too much about that. It certainly hasn't boiled. So I'll carry on pulling it apart, and the next bit I see that's interesting I'll report back to you. Okay, remove the flywheel, and I'm very pleased to say that this is obviously an imp block, so it used to have a scroll seal at the back of the engine, but I fitted it with a rear oil seal conversion from Mark Maynard that he supplies, and it appears to have stayed oil tight. It's a bit gungy in that corner, but I don't believe it was dripping. So that was nice to see. And then moving on to the cam cover area, we took the cover off obviously, and I've just been looking around and seeing how things are faring up. Looks like the chain and the tension is all working okay, nothing's failed there. And then just having a quick look, the cam followers all look absolutely mint, which is good. It's in a bronze sleeve carrier, which is also nice. So I'm going to take it apart obviously and replace all the valve springs and the caps and the valves and whatever else we find that we think is up on its hours. It's a serviceable item almost. But things like the camshaft, you'll notice the cam looks remarkably sort of peaky rather than like an old school R23 cam. It's a modern profile basically, designed by Bob Jones, and they're really good good torque spread, and it should do 100 horsepower this engine, no problem. So followers look good as well, which is nice. What I'm going to do next is I'll pull this off and we'll have a look inside and see how the cylinder's been sealing with the top of the liners, etc., with the wheel springs. Okay, I've just removed the camshaft. That's the one out of the race car there, out of the race engine, which is the BJ65, the modern profile one. And this is the an original R23 style or very similar camshaft. So you'll see straight away that the duration on the top of the lobe is nearly double on the R23. And what that does, obviously, it gives the cam lots of area, so when the engine's revving, you know, it's really happy to be up there. It does nothing below 6,000 RPM, this camshaft, but once it gets going, they're really quite strong, and also they hang on amazingly. They hang on beyond the capability of the bottom end of the engine, really. You know, even though the power obviously falls off because of the speed, they still hang on to 9.5, 10,000 RPM, which is how everyone raced them back in the day. But obviously we're trying to make them last a full season by just, you know, coaxing them to 8.5 and changing the oil regularly, etc. It's a different type of racing nowadays. So what I was going to say was all the cam followers look in great condition, all the cams in good condition, which is good. And the only thing I will say, and I don't know whether you guys will agree with me, if you've been around a while you'll know what I'm saying, the old school big duration cams, big low lift, big duration, big area, on track they just sound awesome. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the way they come on cam or why they sound so good. This type of cam is great. It works from like 4,500 RPM and it still does the 100 horsepower at 8.5, but they're just a little bit clinical and not quite so. The attraction for me of the Hillman when I was a kid, when I watched them Davrians with the Ian Sykes motors in them, racing around Alton Park, etc., in the mod sports, was the noise. They sounded awesome, and I bet they all had R23 cams in them. Anyway, I'm waffling and going a bit nostalgic on you. Right, so what I was going to talk about next was, this is the cam carrier, and you can see it's held on by these 8 bolts here, or nuts and studs. So what we do when we do them as a racer, we pin the carriers down at the end. So this is a little banjo bolt which is made out of a 5/16 UNC bolt. It's basically drilled up the end and then cross drilled, and it has a little diameter turned on it. And the idea is the high pressure oil weight comes up the head and it's able to feed the bearing journal there, and it's also able, there's like a cross drilling behind here which feeds all the cam follower bores with fresh oil. So that's why that's done like that. But the reason it's done that way is, if you look, this is where the camshaft is obviously being pushed this way from opening the valve springs, and that is where it's held to the head. So we sometimes get a situation where the end of the head starts to curl up, not the end of the head, the end of the cam carrier starts to curl up, especially if we're doing big RPM. So what we do is just simply drill and tap the head and pin it with this little bolt, and do the same at this end as well, so that obviously the head, the carrier, is pinched there, and it's also pinched here, firm to the cylinder head. So I'll get the head off next and we'll look inside there. Okay YouTubers, I'm now got the cylinder head off this engine, and it's very, very pleasing what I see inside. So just looking at it, I can see we've got, you know, nice build-up of carbon, nothing's been touching, everyone's friends. This is a bit of what we'll call like a bore wash, where the fuel's been coming in, because obviously the fueling's only right when it's wide open throttle under load, so when you're cruising around the paddock and stuff, it just gets a bit fuely. Anyway, what I wanted to say was, last week we looked at the way the wheel string's seated and how it was protected by the extra grey glue I put around the outside. Now, what I wanted to take the opportunity to say to you guys was, the grey glue has no part whatsoever in sealing the combustion pressures. It is just purely there to protect the wheel string from the coolant. That's all it's there for. So you can see that flat area there, that will have corresponded with that bit there, so it was hard against the liner, so the wheel string was protected. The wheel string does all the job of sealing the pressure, hence why it's got that little silver line. You can see, we were talking about the pinch being 15 thou, you can just about make out a little flat on the top of the wheel string. Now, that was a radius originally, and that's where the wheel string has deformed as we've torqued the head down. And then obviously this is a proper block. This is one of my top out liner blocks. It's not a wet liner job, so the liner only sits 10 mil down there, which means that basically the whole lot grows together, and it just helps hold the whole thing. You don't get any liner shuffle issues like you do with the old wet liner block when you try and race them for a long time. So that's great, I'm happy to see that. And also what I just noticed was, I remember the story now, because Mike was a new customer and he's brought his engine to me and said, look, you know, unfortunately in the past he'd had some oil starvation issues, just it had a problem with the sump, and it come to me as an engine with a big end thrown on it, and it had come off the crankshaft. Obviously it made a right mess of the block and the head, and the head was quite nice, but it was so thin, and I think it was number 3 cylinder, it had whacked it, you know, because obviously once the piston's not attached to the crankshaft via the conrod, it all flails around and it hits the head and bruises it, and it damaged it really badly. So I said to Mike, look, because the head's so nice, I'll make an effort to fix it, but I can't promise anything. We'll just have to see how we get on with the dyno. If it's going to fail, it'll fail in the dyno anyway, it won't be on you. So I just saw this and I remembered. So normally, you remember the support screw we fit down here to support the chamber, where it's very, very thin. Well, because it had broken the head, I think it was around there where the piston had hit it and it had collapsed, what I did was I just got the hurdy-gurdy with a carbide on it and I ripped it all out. I think I've got a picture on my camera somewhere actually, so I'll try and add that to the video. So I hurdy-gurdied it all out and then just welded the whole lot up. So I basically built the weld up from the floor of the exhaust port so that it was all strong again. So looking at the way the head survived, I'd say it was a successful operation. I'm really pleased with that. And it was that thin, the head. This is where, if you've got a standard imp, you'll recognise this area where the oil pressure switch goes. And obviously it has to be welded up as well, because it got so thin it broke through into the threads. So that's that. That's where we're at. Obviously, one more thing I was going to talk about for a second was the engine. I'm refreshing it now, and I'm obviously the pistons, they're like a serviceable item, valves, springs, caps, it's just going to go in the bin. Now it's only because it's up on its hours, not because it's failing or it's like about to fail. I mean, I was just looking at the cam carrier here, and this is like the day I fitted it, you know, it's absolutely brand new, it's barely touched. And you know, obviously I'm biased because I love imp engines, I think they're great, but the thing I'll say is I've rebuilt lots of engines over my brief career as a engine builder, and I used to take on everything that came through the door, done Rover V8s, MGBs. I even did a Chevron, it wasn't a Chevron, it was a Brian Hart 420R once. That was a lovely engine, but I was a bit out of my depth, to be honest with you. I just sort of winged it. Anyway, that's another story. Right, what I was going to say was, I see lots of engines that are what I call like a constant failure engine, so that they work the season, but when you come to the end of the year, everything's knackered in them. Whereas with the Hillman, because of a good design in the first place, you know, the cam and the followers doesn't get any grief. The pistons and the rods, it's got a low piston speed because it's such a short stroke engine, so the piston and rod doesn't seem to get any grief. All the valve gear behaves perfectly. The head and all the wheel strings and liners and everything works an absolute treat as long as they don't get hot. So in theory, you know, when we pull the bottom end apart now, I shouldn't say too much in case it's knackered, but I suspect it'll look pretty much like the day we put it together, which would be really nice. And we'll get it put back together and hopefully get a tune out of it before next week. Okay, YouTubers, we're at the business end now. Get my torch ready. So just pulled it apart. I'm very happy. The oil pump's mint. The crank looks mint. The oil looks mint. Everything looks really good. We'll just pull the spacer. This is the spacer that bridges the load between the mains cap and the girdle plate. That helps hold it all together. We'll just pull this centre bearing off, and he says, and it's stuck. Bad preparation. Please excuse my roughness. It's just a bit of oil stiction, we'll call it. It's obviously located in the side of the block there. So what's the main looking like? Oh, it's barely touched, like new that. And the crank also looking very, very nice. So this is all very pleasing to see, because this has had quite a lot of racing over the last couple of years. Big ends. Again, you see that copper on the edge, that's just where I've machined the bearing down from a mini 998 Cooper S bearing to an imp bearing, a bit wider on the mini. So we just machine them down, the tabs in the same place, and you can get them in ACL Duroglide, which is nice. So it's had a bit, the bearing, but it's not failing. There's no signs of overheating or anything. That funny pattern on the piston skirt is typical of this particular make of piston. It's a Hepalite copy made by Mark Maynard. I put these in a lot of the engines and they've been very, very good, to be fair. And they use a metric ring pack. So if you look, it's got the modern 3-piece oil control ring there, which is very good and effective at the oil consumption side of things. So I'm really pleased with that. This engine, when he's got the obviously it's on a steel rod already, we'll put him a new set of pistons in. We've got his brand new crankshaft here to go in, and this will make a really good solid engine, you know, the sort of engine you want to do like Spa 6-hour meeting or something with. Anyway, not trying to put ideas into your head there, my mate Mike, but if you want a spare driver, I'm always available. Right, I'll get the rest of it apart, and then we'll start putting it back together with a new crank in the next few days and hopefully get a tune out of it ready for Sunday night. Right, okay, good morning YouTubers. I'm just on with building this 1040cc imp engine up that we're going to make an all steel engine. So we've got these steel pistons and rods there. We're going to obviously put new pistons on them. They've only done one season, them rods, so we're quite happy with them. There's no signs of them failing in any way, which I wouldn't expect anyway. This is the new steel EN40B Farndon crankshaft, and it's such a nice piece of kit. I've just been giving it the final clean. I just basically brake clean everything, because when they polish and grind them, you get a bit of the carb rundum runs back inside the crankshaft, so it's really good practice to give it a proper good brake cleaner bath and airline. These are the bungs. They're called sludge traps actually, and they live here on every big end. So what they do is, as you imagine, it's flying around really, really fast. Any hard sediment in the oil or anything that's you know, a contaminant, it goes to the outside of the crankshaft because it's thrown by centrifugal force. So when we remove these after a season, we often see quite a bit of sludge behind them, where the sludge has obviously been spun around, and it's very hard. It's almost like graphite. It's funny stuff. I'll take a crank apart one day and show you. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the design of the oil feed. So believe it or not, if you put oil in here, or water, or brake cleaner, sorry, and then bung all of these holes, it will find its way all the way to the rear journal. So each main is what we call cross drilled. I'll just zoom in there so you can see the main is cross drilled all the way through. So all three mains are like that, and then the big ends, they are also cross drilled. So if you look down, the hole goes all the way through. So you effectively, the bearing gets 2 lots of oil fed rather than one like on a standard imp. And then also, just zoom out a bit, so the crank is drilled this way. You can see, if I zoom in perhaps you can see. So the crank is drilled. Oh, we can't see the end of that one, because what happens is that cross drilling comes to the centre of here, which we might be able to zoom in and see. Halfway down that hole is where that first drilling goes, and then there's a drilling here that goes all the way across to here, so we can probably see through that one. There you go. So the oil basically is balanced throughout the crankshaft. All these are all drilled against the centre there, so it's coming from here, but then it's blind, that one, it just makes it to the centre, it doesn't come out the other side there. So it just helps balance the pressure in the crankshaft, you know, if you've got a particularly bad oil gallery system. So I just wanted to say what a marvellous bit of kit. And also we'll also talk for a second about the radius. Now these guys have been making crankshafts for a long time. Look at how lovely that radius is in the corner there. These are absolutely lovely. Anyway, yes, thank you very much, Founding Engineering. I do like your crankshafts, as you probably got the message. So I'll get this bolted into the engine now, and I don't think we're going to get a tune out of it for Sunday. We'll be honest, it's going to be next week before it's finished. Hopefully before Race Retro on Wednesday. Okay, YouTubers, I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to with the engine. I saw a few places I could improve on, so I've done a bit of head port work. Not that I've bunged the holes because it's obviously got valves in it now. I don't want to get caught out with some debris in there. So I've done a bit of work on the head, and I've got the steel crankshaft in now with the new bearings, and it'll be a lovely strong engine, this new chain obviously. And I did skim the block. I just took 20 thou off it, and that basically gives me an intrusion on the piston, which allowed me to make a little intruder to reduce the CCs in the head, and it also makes the eyebrows shallower, so we gain a bit of compression there. So hopefully we might see this in the sort of 13s bracket, like 13:1 compression ratio, which is perfectly safe with the short stroke 60mm standard crankshaft, which is obviously what this runs because it's a 1040cc engine. So got a new set of valve springs on. Everything looked great on it, to be honest. It was just to get exercise with changing parts because they were up on their hours. Now I'll try and get this running for next Wednesday before we go to Race Retro, and we'll get a tune out of it together in the dyno. Okay chaps, I'm joined today by Mr. Edward Linton in his rally car. He's been in Wales doing a rally, but unfortunately he's had a little bit of an altercation and the exhaust has hit a rock and fell off. So he's also got a problem with the engine where it's not quite running right, is it, Ed? So welcome to rainy Manchester, Ed.
Oh, I'm here again.
You love it down here, don't you? Lucky you're local, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about what's happened, Ed. Where were you?
So we were down over the ep32 ranges in down in South Wales, Buthwells, and we had a 2-day event, the Hero Peradua event. It was a tough rally. First day was from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Oh,
yeah. We were doing quite well in the morning, then the navigator made a bit of a mistake on the timing.
Deduct his wages.
Well, I know. With a sacking for next year. He'll be watching this, John. And then we went into Halfway Forest and into the ep32 forests. We were cutting all the banks because they were on what are called TC sections, so it was basically flat out everywhere.
Flat sticks.
And in the forest it had these raised gravel roads with the deep ditches.
Yeah, yeah.
And so for me to go a little bit quicker, I thought, right, I'm going to hug the ditches and drop the front wheel in,
wow.
Like you're supposed to do.
Are you fattening?
Yeah, that was it, yeah. And anyway, it was one of the hairpins. I thought, save handbraking it round, be quicker if you can drive round.
Yeah, yeah.
And it had again this deep ditch in it, and we caught the exhaust and it pulled it off on the link pipe. We heard it rattling away, so we thought, well, just keep going. I knew the bumper and the exhaust was dragging on the ground, and then about 2 miles into the stage, the noise went.
It went quiet.
Yeah.
And you got a new noise.
Yeah. So we made it to the finish of the. That was the third leg in the afternoon. We made it to the finish, and you had mechanical assistance there. The guys were great. They were working on it till 11:30.
Wow.
But we so we had a word with the clerk of the course and said, listen, we've lost the exhaust. It's going to be difficult to make it quieter.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, but I've got this muffler that you gave me, actually.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because sometimes they'd fail scrutineering. So they put that on, and the the head organiser said, yeah, go on, you'll be okay with that.
Oh, that's belting, that is.
So anyway, the next morning we did a couple of stages through the Buthwell Showground, and did the first stage, and then all of a sudden it started to misfire. It seemed to clear now and again, but it came back. Anyway, we made it to the end, and we did quite well actually. We finished 18th overall, 3rd in class, but considering a lot of the time penalties we'd got,
yeah,
we did well.
Well done, Ed. Flying the flag for the Hillman gang there.
That
mate.
was it, yeah.
Super job.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a quick look. Could you fire it up for me, and we'll have a little listen to it and see if we can work out what's gone wrong. Well, it sounds mechanically quiet. I'll give it a little rev. Right, knock it off, Ed, please. Right, it's definitely on 3, that, Ed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull one of the wires off the ignition, and then can you crank it for me? And what I'm going to listen to the compression and see if the compression sound even. It won't start, it'll just crank. Right, that's fine. Right, it sounds like each cylinder's got equal to the next one, so I'm not thinking that we've got a internal fault. You've changed the plugs already.
Yeah, I put a new set in, number 4. Number 4, the plug I showed you, if you want to have a look at them again.
Yeah.
We thought that was the problem when we changed the plugs, but then once we fired it up with the new plugs, it was still the same. It was still the same,
was it? Right, well what I'll do is I'll just put my hand underneath here, and if I feel the primary pipes on the exhaust, and oh yeah, you're right, Ed, the rear cylinder is stone cold. The exhaust hasn't got hot. Right, I think we'll start by looking at the slow running jet in the Lotto. It's quite easy to access, so I'll pull that out and we'll have a look and see if it's got a fueling, because we can't really get it on the main circuit unless we rev it, you know. When it's cold I don't really want to do that. Right, okay, just here with Ed, and I pulled the slow running jet, which is for number 4 cylinder, and I've got to be honest, it's perfectly clear. So I'm still thinking it's not mechanical. We're now going to look to the spark department and see what we can see there. Right, Ed, what I've done is I've put the card back together, and I've just got us a second-hand lead just in case it's something really simple. We'll be lucky if it is, but just give us a fire up, Ed. Oh no! Right, okay, we'll just cut the camera at that. Right, Ed, what's your theory?
Theory on what, the misfire?
Well, you've had some electrical issues, haven't you?
Yeah, well the thing is, we one of the stages we did on the Saturday night was very rough.
Right.
And we lost the trip meter. That's where we lost a lot of the time, because the navigator couldn't work out our average speeds and what have you. And we lost the whole trip meter, and my brand's trip meter, I've got 2 sensors on it. The sensor on the wheel,
yeah,
which I couldn't get that to work properly because brands actually said I had too much electrical interference on the car, old car.
That's them horrible copper leads. Right. Honestly, if you pull that off and look inside, I mean, you can actually see how it's all gone a bit manky. Yeah. But they're just like, you know, they were great in 1976, but things have moved on, Ed.
Yeah. Well, I've tried to keep it as...
I know, mate, no, and people...
Anyway, so I put a sensor off the back of the speedometer, so they make one for the old Smith's watches, the clocks. And anyway, when they were actually fixing the car on the night section, after we finished the night section of leg 2 on the Saturday night, I said, my trip's gone down, can you have a look at it? And they said, oh, it's your sensor on your front wheel. I said, no, I'm not using that, I'm using the one on the speedometer. So they said, well, all the wires are chafed on the sensor on the... Right. It was probably rocks and things have knocked it. It's pretty common apparently. So they put a new sensor on, the latest sensor, and the trip started to work fine. And I said to my navigator, we'll try it, but remember we've got this electrical interference and the trip might not be very accurate. Anyway, the next morning it was fine. So I'm just wondering whether or not the interference has kind of stopped, because the trip meter was like 100% accurate.
I have a rev counter, a digital one on the Dyno, and if I try and run with copper leads, the rev counter doesn't work. It jumps all over the show, and it took me ages to suss it out.
Funny you say that, because my rev counter used to move a little bit like that.
It's interference.
And I noticed actually on the last day it seemed to be more stable. I'm just wondering if...
Well, what'll happen is, you see, we're getting a spark produced, but it's not getting to the plug. So you'll probably find, we'll put a new cap on it as well, because it's not got to the plug, it might have tracked down the insides, and it will of course this could be, you might find all your trip starts to work properly anyway. Ed, thank you ever so much for doing all this. It looks like we're causing a traffic jam outside the Moss Road facility here. Thanks again, Ed. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay, cheers.
And tell us about your trophy.
Oh right, yeah, at the finish I was awarded third in class, which was very good actually, about all the problems we had and the timing. But I was also presented with another trophy for being the nicest prepared and looking car on the event.
Oh wow, brilliant. Well, Ed, I don't want to see this car back here for the leads and the dizzy cap in that state. I want it clean, okay?
I know.
Right, thanks again.
We had a bit of a rush, but you did say don't touch it in any way, don't steam the engine off.
No, I did. And
I've left it exactly as it is.
I've got the Germans tomorrow, so I better go inside of the workshop. All right, cheers. Right, okay, YouTubers, we've got a very special engine that's come all the way from Germany for a bit of a dyno test, and we're going to try and we're going to do a bit of a learn on it. We're going to get some figures out of it, see what the compression ratio is to give us an idea of how much advance it'll want. I think it's got a small oil leak at the back of the block, and we're going to set the carbs up. This engine belongs to Nicolas. Nicolas has come all the way from Germany. Now,
yes.
Luckily, I speak fluent German.
Oh, so, that's great. Why do I always speak English to you then? You should have told me 5 years ago.
Mate, you've just blown my trick. I was going to pretend to speak German. I was going to say good morning and welcome to the show. But obviously that is not German, is it? That's just English.
That's
with my stupid
Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen, willkommen zur Show.
What does that mean?
Yeah, good morning, welcome to the show.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Nicolas, in brief, I just wanted to ask you thank you for agreeing to be on Shrigleytube first of all. No, now you're quite a famous Hillman racer, aren't you?
I wouldn't call it famous.
I would say so, mate. You're all over the internet, and you actually race the car. You do a lot of racing. You know.
Yeah.
It's called Battle of the Dwarfs, isn't it?
Battle of the Dwarfs, yeah, in German Kampf der Zwerge. So it's a racing series up to 1.3 liters, and all the cars would need to be built from the model before 1975. Right. So it's historic cars, small cars, and it's always a very full grid, and it's nice races, especially for the spectators. Yeah. We don't go that close as you go in the UK. I'm still missing out. I never raced here. I'm planning to do that in the next couple of years.
Nicolas, if you're going to come for a race meeting this year, come to Brands Hatch on, I think
Jonathan
it's the...
Melton told me yesterday.
Yeah, that was a super... With the CTCRC, it was like a touring car weekend, and we had like 2 races on the Grand Prix circuit on the Saturday and 2 races on the Indy circuit on the Sunday, and it was awesome. It was a great weekend, lots of old cars there, and Jonathan's Bevenin went round as well, and we all started crying when it went past at Paddock Hill Bend. But anyway...
That's good. So, yeah, maybe... I need some Dunlop historic tyres, I think.
Don't worry about that, we'll sort that out. You can come as... All you've got to do, it doesn't matter what spec your car is, just enter as Class G, which is a guest, which is what I did, and they just welcome you with open arms, no problem.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. As long as you don't win, and then they'll just protest you. But anyway. Right. So your car at home is you've got like a steel-bodied 1150, haven't you? A saloon car, which is what you do all your big races in, and you quite like your endurance races, don't you?
Yeah. It's basically I've got 3 IMs. The first one I bought from Ireland. It's got a rather sad bodywork, so we're just on restoring that one. And the blue imp, I think that's the one everybody knows. It's got like a red stripe in the middle. It's called Impje because it's called coming from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Ex Chris Bakker car, and I got that since 2018. And since then I do the Battle of the Dwarfs racing and always 1 or 2 endurance races per year, which are always on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So we've got the 24 hours classic race, which is actually only 3 hours.
Wow.
And we did the 1,000 kilometer race, which is a roughly 7-hour race on the Nordschleife twice. With the engine you built, and it worked.
And
so
how many drivers?
2 drivers then.
I bet you were tired.
Oh, it's nice to drive an imp for so long, you know. On the short races, you always have like 25 minutes of full power racing. And I more like to have like sitting in the car 2 hours, not giving 100%, but 99, and carrying the car like through a nice race.
Yeah, flowing and things like that. I must be a bit more hectic than you, because when I do a 20-minute race, I am absolutely whacked at the end of it. I literally fall out of the car. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, maybe I get a bit overexcited. But anyway. Well, thank you very much, Nick. Right, we're going to talk for 2 seconds about this engine. Now, this is an engine that you've built with your father, isn't it? And it's called the
1001 Night engine, because of course, after rebuilding it now, it's got 1001 cc. So my dad calls it the engine from 1001 Nights. I think that's an Aladdin movie or something like that.
Superb. Yeah. I'm not educated in that area, mate, so this comment, but yeah, I'll take your word
Neither do I.
What I'll say is, it's got some posh pistons, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got some forged Mahle pistons.
Wow.
There's a guy in Cologne rebuilding all the historic Formula 1 cars, and he basically designed the imp piston like he really likes it to be. And it took 2 attempts, and he's like a perfectionist, and my father was very happy, he was very happy, I wasn't, because you know, I've got 3 cars and 3 engines, and he took 1 engine out for 2.5 years. Me waiting for him having the pistons made.
Oh wow.
But now they're in there, and let's hope it works out well.
Excellent. Well, what we'll do is we're going to put it on a stand, we're going to CC it, because that'll give me an idea of how much advance we can wang in it. And it's got a G5 cam, I believe, and we've got an oil leak, so we're going to sort the oil leak out as well, and then we'll get it on the dyno, and then we'll return. And as a special treat for my German friend, you're going to do the dyno in.
Oh,
and I'll just
on your special piston, super.
Look at that
acceleration thing.
Yeah, that's an old Vauxhall XE piston from when I worked at Bob. It was in the scrap bin, and I just thought that is too good to go in the scrap bin, so I saved it and I've hinged it, and basically that is the throttle for the dyno now.
Yeah, I saw that on your first videos before I was ever here.
Oh, really?
I think we know each other since 2016 from the phone, but it's the 4th time I'm here now. I come once a year, so
yeah. Normally for your refresh, isn't it? Anyway, right, brilliant. Well, we'll crack on, and I'll get stuck in. Okay, bit of an update with Nicolas. We're just here with his engine, and what we've done so far is we've resealed the housing at the back of the block. We've put it on this stand so that we could get it vertical, and basically done a CC test. So was it 22.8 cc's we got in there? I think it was, when it
made it 11.96 to 1.
11.96. That's a nice figure, that. So we just thought we'd check the cam timing while we're here, because this was Nicolas's like first engine that he's built, and it was pretty close, wasn't it? But we have just tweaked it a little bit. So this cam, we just talked about it for a second, it's quite a special cam. This is a really high lift cam. It's called a G5, and I've only ever seen one of them, and that was this one because I sold it. Yeah, this is a 400 thou lift cam. Was it 408? Yeah, I think it's meant to be a 410 lift. We might have had a little bit of wear on it, or just the measuring wasn't brilliant. But it's a Griefum engineering cam. Obviously, lots of people heard about the GE3. The GE5 was a development from that, mainly for like the space frame imps and the light imps with 5-speed gearboxes, where they could concentrate all the power at the top end of the RPM range. So we just had a mess around with the figures at top dead center, and we've settled on 168 on the inlet and 140 on the exhaust, which we thought was a good starting place, and we're going to see how it runs and go from there. So cool. Are you happy with that, Nicolas?
Absolutely.
Right.
Let's see how it goes.
We'll see how it runs. Right, we're running with Nicolas's engine now on the dyno. We've set the cam time in, and we've fixed the oil leak, and I think it's about it, isn't it? It runs an absolute peach. Done a really good job of building that, mate. It's cracking. It's doing quite good torque as well, because it's only a little 998, so we're very happy with it. we've finished messing about. We've put quite a lot of advance in it, which I thought might be the case with that old school cam. It's probably up around the 36, 38 degrees max. But for the next part, it's very exciting for me because we have a new dyno operator.
First time touching Andy's special dyno, right?
Right, brilliant. So
it's the same with the foot. I do with my hand now.
Right? Yeah. Exactly the same. You just wind it, pull it open, and you might have to feather it a bit because it's obviously it won't like to go straight away. Yeah, so just feather it through, like when you pump it, it'll give it fuel. You see. Right. Okay. Yeah, you should be able to go wide open there. Okay, so it's doing about 63 at 4.6. Start pressing the off button. Hold it flat out still, wide open. That's it. I'll zoom in. So it's holding 75. Stop pressing the off button. Okay, that's fine. we don't want you getting too carried away. I was getting nervous for you. I thought. Anyway. I think we've proved what we need to prove, haven't we? And I hope you enjoyed trying to break your engine. Right. we'll take it off and put it back in the boot of your car while it's all in one piece. But yeah, no, I think it'd be absolutely Bobby Dazzle. That. I think you'll be all right with that. Right, a bit of a development on the 998 of Nicolas's. We were just casually talking after he'd finished revving it on the dyno about how good the torque was, and I was saying, no, it's because of your 400 lift foul lift cam. I said, that really helps the torque. I said, back in the day they used to run inside a bronze sleeve carrier so that the follower didn't tip, but we don't need to do that anymore because we use steel followers now. And then Nicolas said,
oh, what's a steel follower?
So we thought we'd better have it apart. And we just took it apart, and just in case you're not familiar, this is the steel follower, so you can see it's quite thin. And this one, sorry, these ones are the original cast iron followers, so that's a chill cast follower. It's a bit thicker, it's about 10 grams heavier as well, we've discovered. But we're going to put a set of steel cam followers in it now, because on full lift the cam follower actually sticks out at the bottom of the cam carrier quite a lot. I'll show that another time when I've got my hands free, but yeah, we're going to sort that out now, and then we'll give it another run and make sure it's right before he goes back. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Nicolas. That was very...
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, but you learn something every day. But that's why you need to go to the specialist and don't think you can do it yourself, right?
I don't know, you've done a good job, mate. It's powerful, it doesn't smoke, it doesn't drip oil. It's, if I could afford you, I'd try and employ you.
Oh, tell my wife she needs to move to Manchester now.
I don't think she'd like it. Yeah.
It's nearer to the sea than Cologne is. That's a good argument. Right?
Tell the rats are really friendly in Stretford.
Oh, yeah.
Right, YouTubers. I'm being videoed for a change now by Nicolas. He's the cameraman. We're back on the engine. We've put the steel followers in and reset the clearances, and it seems to be running nicely. Now last night when I had time to think about things, I thought, being this old school cam, we're probably better off on some smaller chokes. So we've put some 32mm chokes in it now, and it does appear to be just generally friendlier and healthier. And it did do a little bit more torque, we thought, didn't we? So we'll load it up at 5-ish. Do you think you could zoom in on the dial?
Did that already.
Oh, you done it already?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Right, so 5.5, 70 foot-pound comes on there. 7.5, 8. 8.5, but we're still doing 65 on it. So let's just see what we've got. There is a rever bean on that cam. 65 multiplied by 8500 equals that, divided by 5252. 105 horsepower. I'd say we'll call it 100. It's not a bad idea, but the dyno does overheat a bit. So we're happy with that, Nicolas. I think you can put it in the boot of your car and...
Perfect.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for the camera in. Okay, YouTubers, that's all we've got time for this week, I'm afraid. I just quickly wanted to say, if you are thinking of going to the Stoneleigh show and you want me to bring anything along, imp-related, rods, pistons, cranks, whatever, bearings, just ping me an email or a WhatsApp message and I'll bring the parts along and you can save on the postage. So yeah, have a great week, and if I don't see you on Friday, Saturday or Sunday at the show, I'll see you on Sunday night at 7. Cheers for now.